Chapter 6. They grow up so fast. Kekalian leads the others down the stairs into the basement of the robotics department. Light strips on the ceiling spring to life as they pass through a large steel door. A long corridor with openings and doors comes into view. Gray concrete walls are plastered with framed posters of special scientific achievements, photographs of award ceremonies and news printouts, like a Hall of Fame for robotics.
Have you ever been here, Evren?
Kekalian asks as Evren looks at the posters on the wall.
No, but Jeppy told me about it.
Evren replies, glancing at Gepedia.
You never told me that you sacked so many awards, Jeppy.
I didn't? Well, now you know.
Gepedia shrugs, oblivious to personal glory or scientific pride. She turns her head to Kalian as they pass a robotic lab. Inside, a Crow technician dismantles a two-legged robotic frame, while two Lens students study readouts on a monitor screen.
So, how are government contracts coming along this year?
Gepedia has had her own experience with university fund allocations. Even in her times, raising money was as important as scientific ideas.
Don't get me started.
Kekalian shakes his head and waves his hand dismissively.
It's all applied science.
He says,
They throw cash at you to develop the umpteenth version of a smoother car varnish, right? But you have to beg for AI time if you want to advance 3D printing.
He lets out a long, resigned sigh, but claps Gepedia on her shoulder, smiling at her.
On the other hand, sometimes you just really have the need for a brand new MK4 to test the latest car paint on really smooth, printed surfaces, right?
He tugs at his lower eyelid and grins at Gepedia. Pico mimics Kekalian's expression as it looks up at him.
Does your eye hurt?
No, Pico.
Kekalian laughs and turns toward a lab door.
People do that to show that there is a secret meaning behind their words.
Like you lied about the need for the MK4.
Error. Yes,
Kekalian answers, taken aback by Pico's directness.
but when you say it out loud, the magic is gone.
Kekalian smiles at Gepedia while he unlocks the door. Pico looks left and right along the corridor, trying to watch the magic before it disappears.
Magic?
The puppet asks. Kalian glances cautiously at Gepedia, but she just nods, encouraging him to continue. Her view of spirituality differs fundamentally from Kekalian's embrace of the mystical, but she also believes that Pico will benefit from processing different perspectives.
Well,
Kekalian explains,
there is magic in words, spoken and unspoken, you know? And in the lie about the MK4, the unspoken words were the magic.
Kekalian turns on the laboratory lights as Evren shoots past him to inspect the setup of the 3D printing array.
I killed magic?
Pico's head shoots up to meet Kekalian's face.
No, you cannot kill the magic.
He says,
It's always there.
smiling at Pico. He sits down in front of a large control array. To make his point, he offers more advice.
In my homeland, we say, with the right word at the right time, you can build empires.
Pico gazes at him for a moment, then at Gepedia, before he inquires,
And the wrong word at the wrong time. Do you destroy empires?
Phew, Pico, you don't stop, do you?
Kekalian raises his eyebrows and turns helplessly to Gepedia.
Jeppy, a little help, please.
He pleads with his eyes. Before he met Pico, he thought his kids were the grandmasters of pestering questions, but Pico beat them all. Gepedia pats the puppet on its head and kneels beside him, while Kekalian activates the vacuum and cooling systems of the 3D printing array.
That is a very interesting question, Pico.
She says,
Can we talk at home about it? Right now, we would like you to help us with that chip.
Okay.
Pico turns around and surveys the printing array and its attached peripheral systems. A mess of cooling pipes, pumps, and robotic arms are attached to the original frame in a way that would make a product designer sick to the stomach. A wavering hum sounds through the small lab. The main screen flickers, the white noise of pixels swirling over its surface. Kekalian checks the software settings and swivels around in his chair to face Gepedia.
So you said this would be something special.
He asks.
I'm all for it. What have you got for me?
It's something special, all right.
Gepedia motions Evren to show him the chip. She retrieves the small transparent box from her wide pockets and holds it up in the air.
What is it?
There's a memory bank in that chip. but the intercons are fried.
Gepedia explains. Kekalian snorts and furrows his brows.
And we'd really like to know what's in that memory bank.
Well, sorry for coming,
Kekalian says.
but I could have told you on the phone. There is no way you can fix an intercon in an existing architecture.
That's exactly what I told her.
Evren vividly remarks as she shifts her gaze away from the printing array toward Kekalian.
I trust Pico.
Gepedia states plainly. She lifts up the puppet and gestures for the crow to vacate his chair. After sitting down Pico in the empty seat, she pushes it closer to the control console.
You're the boss.
Kekalian quips, gesturing Evren to follow him to a lab bench.
Let's have a look at this thing.
He says. Evren carefully retrieves the small chip from the box and fits it into the sample stand. Loading the stand into the inner sample container, Kekalian walks over to the center of the printing array, where he places the sample into the heart of the 3D printer. Upon closing the stainless steel chambers, vacuum seals lock the chambers with hissing sounds. Finally, Kekalian manually activates several pump systems that begin to vibrate behind the main array. A metallic, oily smell wavers through the air.
This baby is ready to print.
Kekalian reports, satisfied with the status of the printing array. Meanwhile, Pico starts to organize the holograms that hover over the control console. The main screen displays a grayish cube with tentacle-like wiring. With flying fingers, Pico calibrates electron beam settings and stepper motors, aligns extruders and vacuum pumps. Kekalian frowns at the seemingly irrational setup and bows down to Gepedia's ear, whispering,
At this input level, the beam will fry the whole thing. What the hell is he doing?
Be patient.
Gepedia replies, gesturing Kekalian away from Pico. At the door, she whispers to him,
I thought the same thing when I saw it first. The crazy thing is, he can control it.
Kekalian looks at Gepedia in disbelief.
No one controls an electron beam.
He clarifies.
It's always prescripted.
He just cannot fathom the idea of manipulating an electron beam by hand.
How does he generate his opcode?
He asks, referring to the necessary code to produce a 3D print object. Gepedia looks at Kekalian and puts her finger on her lips.
Don't get upset. He controls the beam directly, just like the rest of the array. There is no script.
Kekalian snorts dismissively and whispers.
Yeah, right. And I'm the first chairman of the Southern Valorant block.
He shakes his head at her preposterous idea, while Gepedia chuckles.
If it only would be that easy, you'd be a much better chairman.
The small room fills with the low buzz of magnetic field generators. Pico turns around in his chair to face Kekalian and Gepedia.
I will start now.
It's your show, Pico.
Gepedia beams at Pico, stepping back to the control panel. They gather behind the puppet and stare at the screen. The cube's image enlarges as the gray surface near a wiring insert comes into view.
Somewhere in there is the intercon that blocks the memory banks.
Evren explains to Kekalian in a low tone. Pipes start to quiver. Vacuum pumps rapidly oscillate back and forth. Suddenly, a minuscule part of the cube's exterior vanishes in a cloud of gas, leaving a tiny indentation. The image zooms in. Hundreds of miniature craters scar a circular cavity on the surface of the chip.
He's burning the insulating layers and uses the vacuum to suck out the atomic gases.
Evren whispers in disbelief. Kekalian is speechless and just stares at the screen with his mouth open. They are both awestruck by what they are witnessing. Pico uses the electron beam to evaporate material, much like an artist would by chiseling off bits of a raw marble block. Bit by bit, the electron beam enlarges the cavity, advancing deeper into the chip.
Chippy, this is...
Kekalian looks at her with wide-open eyes, but then frowns at his next thought.
Who else knows about this?
He asks Gepedia with a worried face.
Only the people in this room.
Gepedia slowly answers, locking eyes with Kekalian.
And I hope it will stay that way.
She says, turning her stern look to Evren.
Yes, of course.
Evren replies absently, still mesmerized by what she sees on the screen. Kekalian watches how Pico's nimble fingers methodically work the holograms, leading the electron beam deeper and deeper in through the layers of the chip. The puppet's head is slightly tilted, as if in thought.
To be honest, I've had my doubts whether Pico could do it with a real chip, but apparently,
Gepedia leaves the sentence hanging, instead nodding at the screen with her chin. Meanwhile, the cavity has rounded into a circular duct leading deeper into the chip. Bright clouds flare up regularly on the screen when the electron beam sends another electron storm, incinerating more atoms into gas clouds. The oscillating vacuum pumps settle into a repetitive rhythm in sync with the hissing air of the stainless steel chambers. After a while, Everin lets out a long breath through blown cheeks.
Of course, this will take some time.
She says, slightly bored. Having accepted the magic she witnessed, her unflappable youthful way is already one step further. Pico replies instantly, while operating the printing array.
Yes. Approximately 3 hours and 4 minutes to breach, 2 hours and 18 minutes to build a new nozzle, and 3 hours and 27 minutes to repair and close the structure. I have sufficient battery power.
As they digest Pico's plan and its time schedule, Kekalion asks Gepedia,
What does it mean? Build a new nozzle.
the standard spray nozzle to apply new material is not fit for the atomic scale.
Gepedia explains.
So, he'll build a finer extension of the nozzle with the material itself.
No way.
Kalion's mind is not ready to accept the idea that Pico creates a makeshift tool to polymerize material for his purposes.
Yahweh!
Counters Gepedia, smiling.
I coughed into my tea when I saw it the first time.
She remembers.
Right now, you could tell me that Pico can walk through walls and I'd believe you.
Everin whispers wide-eyed. She is still trying to wrap her mind around the idea that this AI-driven puppet is manipulating materials on the atomic level. Skeptically surveying the vibrating pumps and tube systems, she asks Kekalion,
Will the vacuum gear keep up the stress? At this pace, those pumps may blow a gasket before Pico is through.
No, they're fine. You can run them for days.
Kekalion replies, proudly surveying his printing array. They again watch the screen and its intermittent bright flashes that reveal the round, deepening hole. The valves' staccato, humming of pumps and rhythmic clanging of the tubing system merge into a complex, yet repetitive rhythm that lulls them into passivity. After a while, Gepedia stretches her back, putting both hands on her back.
Well, I don't know about you, but I could use a tea.
She groans as she massages her lower back. Everin points at the puppet that is still working the holograms and asks Gepedia.
What about Pico?
What about him?
Gepedia responds. Noticing Everin's and Kekalion's doubtful expression, she reassures her.
He'll be fine. He's used to working overnight by himself.
To emphasize her point, she turns to the puppet.
Pico, we'll be back when you're finished, okay?
Okay.
If something comes up, call me, okay?
Okay.
Have fun.
Okay.
Gepedia gives Kalion a resigned shrug and turns toward the door. Kekalion smiles at Pico's ways and gently asks the puppet.
I'll have to lock you in this room, so no one can disturb you. Is that okay for you?
Okay.
They exit the room, leaving Pico by itself. Kekalion locks the door, motioning Gepedia and Everin toward the corridor. He activates his arm clip and checks his schedule.
I have to prepare a lecture in a little bit,
He says.
so I'll give you access to the basement entrance and the printing lab.
Gepedia accepts his invite on her arm clip as they walk toward the exit.
Now that he's all alone, I don't feel too good about this anymore.
Gepedia muses as she looks back over her shoulder.
Usually, I'm right next door. If something comes up,
Relax, JP. He's safe in there.
Kalion friendly pats her back, understanding her worries as a parent.
They grew up so fast, don't they?
He smiles at his Amma friend.
you have no idea.
Gepedia sighs. Lately, she finds herself contemplating just how the world would react to Pico's existence and
How will Pico react to the world?
impressive.
Yes, I know.